cozy up.
It's like, dude, why does this look like a movie? Anyway, commercials are different now, but that's what they used to show you because they wanted you to serve as a bombardier. You drop bombs over places. Pretty cool. I kind of would like to do that. I am what you call a pyromaniac, which means I love fire. I love explosions. There's once, I wasn't going to tell you this, I'm going to now. I was with a few of my buddies, right? And they got a tennis ball, and they said, Mr. Ryan, this is no ordinary tennis ball. This tennis ball has a fuse coming out of the top of it. And I said, I like where this is going. They had gotten all of this crazy stuff and packed it on the inside of this tennis ball. And they said, when we light this, and it goes down to the bottom, it is going to start a fire in the tennis ball, and smoke's going to come out everywhere. And I thought, oh, I can't even wait. This is going to be so cool. We had the world's greatest smoke bomb, and it was homemade. I said, how did you know how to do this? They're like, saw it on YouTube. I'm like, this is going to explode, and we're all going to die. So we walked over, and we were going to the backyard, and their mom said, no, don't. And see, I'm an adult. But now other people's moms are still telling me not to do stuff, and it was very helpful. So you said, no, you're not doing that. Our neighborhood's going to look like it's burning down. Right. We won't light this off the backyard. So we hopped in their minivan, and we drove over to this empty gravel lot, right? Just a mile away from the church. This is back little lot. And we got out our lighter, and their dad was there. I'm like, you light it. So he's going to light it. Now here's the thing. Mr. Ryan has gotten in trouble for a lot of things in his life. Mr. Ryan knows what to do when you get in trouble to try to minimize the damage and the punishment afterwards after you leave. So they're back there and they're trying to light this little thing, and they got this little bomb or whatever, and they're lighting it, and all of a sudden it lit. And we put it down, and we all ran for cover, right? And we were watching it, and it's fizzling out, it's fizzling, and it got to the bottom, and we're waiting. And then there it goes. Smoke starts coming out of the top. It's not much, like a little candle smoke, and it's coming up, and we're thinking it's gonna explode. And nothing happened. Nothing, no smoke, no huge plumes of smoke, no pop, nothing. So we go over to it, we're all looking, and their dad was there, and he picks it up, and he's looking at it, he's like, I don't know why it didn't go off, it's crazy. And they're all in a big group around this thing. And one of them's holding it up like this and kind of looking at it, and I turn around, and a police car came out of nowhere and slowly pulls onto this little side street where we are. I'm like, we have a bomb. Like, we're going to get in so much trouble. So I said, police officer, hurry. And the police are great. I'm so glad they're there. But I don't want him to think that we're trying to blow stuff up. Because we really won't. We just want to smoke. And he drove it up, and he rolled his window down. And all of them, when they saw it, I'm like, hey, cool. Don't make him scared. Like, I don't want him to think we're doing anything wrong. And they all went, and they started walking like this. I'm like, dude, you look so guilty. Why are you doing that? And then and the police officer was like, what are you guys doing? I was like, oh, hey, officer, we're doing a science experiment. That's what we're doing. It's for school. And really, they're homeschooled, so I guess I wasn't lying, but yeah, homeschool science experiment. That's what we're going to call this. And he goes, oh, cool. What were you trying to make? And we showed him. He goes, here's why that didn't work. You need to put this in it, and that in it, and this in it, and that in it. That's going to make you a good smoke bomb. I'm like, that's the coolest police officer in the whole wide world. That is great. So even though I haven't gotten to blow up a lot of things, I would love the chance to do that. However, in order to serve on the airplane, like the videos we just watched, in order to do that, what did you have to do? In order to be on the airplane and drop bombs on things, what do you have to do? What do you have to do? You have to go to training, and how do you go to training? How do they select you? What do you have to do? Yes. You have to call, my name is Luke Mackey, and I am here to jump on an airplane and go drop bombs on people. In essence, they're saying 3 words. They're saying here and so while we're thinking about that a little bit, here's what I want to show you guys, just in case you missed it. We have got a group that what they do is they put clothes on kids that need clothes the most. Foster care program, got kids that they show up to homes and they don't have many clothes to wear. Anybody put a jacket on before they left the house this morning? Getting a little cold, isn't it? What if, as it gets a little colder, what if you didn't have a jacket for it? We're going to get some money together. Can I get drops here? Mr. Matt, would you come on up and help us with our offering, please? Here's what we did. I threw out a big goal because Franklin Road is going to double whatever the offering is that we bring in for this group, all right? We're going to try to buy some clothes for some kids. But the Franklin Road Baptist Church pastor said, whatever we bring in, he in the church, well, the church is going to double. We wanted to raise $200, and you guys did it. So I threw out a crazy goal. I said, you know what? If we raise $200, by the way, $200 double is $400. So if we've already got $400 raised, I think we could try to raise $500 right here in this room. And then if that's doubled, that'd be crazy. So you guys have already brought in $373.23. Do you see how close that bar is to being all the way full? We're going to try to see whatever you guys brought in for offering. If it's 10% or if it's something extra that you wanted to give, that's totally fine. Mr. Matt, why don't you stand on up here and you get ready. You stand right here in the middle. See if we're going to come down to you. If you brought any offering, bring it on up. What you guys got? Bring it in. Make sure you're smiling. God loves a cheerful giver. If you brought something for your offering or tithe, this is your chance. We're going to use whatever we bring in for those kids. Praise God, everybody. Got a last chance. Last chance. You guys can bring it up. All right. Mr. Matt, thank you so much. That's great. So, like I said, whatever you bring in for your offering, your 10%, whatever you made, if that's what you're bringing in, or if you're bringing in something extra, whatever it is that you wanted to give to God this morning, that's your chance. Mr. Matt, you're going to count that with Haley and Adeline in the back. If you guys do that. Ms. Madison's going to come up here and sing in just a second. We've got one quick thing that we're going to do. Let's see here. We're going to do one quick round of basketball and see where you guys are at. This board is spinner is going to decide where we end up. First grade, and in the first grade, we'll look at the first grade. Stand up, first grade. Stand up, stand up, stand up for Jesus. You know, stand. All right, second person. Raise your hands. Where you at? 1, 2. Pace is sitting in the front, I guess. Ben, come on up. And 1, 2. Come on up, Lucy. All right. You got 30 seconds on the clock. Let's see you in. Ready. Set. Go. All right. All right, guys, come on. Ben, jump, Ben. Ben, jump, Ben. Ben, jump, Ben. Ben, jump, Ben. Girls, jump, Ben. Lucy. together. Well, in just a second. Guys, come on down. Why don't you lead us in a couple of songs? Who smashed the car? Anybody smash a car? Take a hammer and just, right there, we had sledgehammer. All right. Who did the pumpkin chunkin? Who got cotton candy? Anybody you get cotton candy? There it is. All you care about is food. Popcorn. Anybody got popcorn? Anybody tried the rock wall? I have a big question. Who in this room rode on a horse? Better question. Who won some kind of live animal? Did anybody get a cat? They were giving away 3 kittens at our harvest festival.
There was 5 of them.
Did you get one, Aiden?
No, there was 5.
I got
5? Did you get one? You got one.
I got 2.
You got one? And you got one? Oh, you shared it. You shared it. So did you have to? Oh, okay. You shared it. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna let's see what else. Oh, who got a hot dog? Who ate a moon pie? Oh, who played Mario Kart yesterday? See the 3 things? Sit straight. Sit down silently. Look forward always. I have some, Mr. Matt, I have some that I'm going to have you give out here in a second. This is a glow devotional. Anybody ever seen these? A glow devotional? So these have the date on them right on the front. These actually start November 1st. Today is October 17th. So here's what happens. On November 1st, you get this booklet, and on the first page it says right at the top what the date is supposed to be. And on November 1st, it gives you something to read for a devotion. So it will tell you a story, it tells you something that you need to know, it gives you a verse to memorize, and it gives you a passage or a verse to read. So it's really cool. I grew up with these devotionals, and I'm going to give these away for free to some very lucky people today. We are going to let the spinner of destiny decide who gets these. Now, I should have enough for quite a few people to get some. Here's how we're going to do it. If I'm going to give these out, I need everybody as a group to be really good. It's not just one person. You get a quiet seat prize because you're quieter than everybody else. That's not the case. So we're going to make it random. We're going to let the spinner decide. But in order for anybody to win anything, everybody's got to be doing a good job. Can you guys do that? Just nod your heads up and down if you think you guys can all be really good. Those same 3 boys just aren't shaking their heads. Can you guys be good? There we go. I believe in you. Mr. Matt, you hold on to this. Pretty cool. Nailed it. That should be a booth next year. We're going to have fun today. Sit up straight, sit down silently, look forward always. Let's pray, ask God to help us, and we are going to dive into a pretty cool story today. Father, we love you, and I pray that today as I lift up my voice and speak, I pray to be with my voice, so every child will be able to hear me well. I pray most importantly that we're not going to be distracted by anything else. I pray that we will all be filled with the Spirit this morning, that you will literally come and fill us inside. I pray that our ears will be listening for something important for us to learn. That our mind will be very sharp and ready to think about the Bible that we're about to talk about. Lord, we've got a couple of really fun things we're going to do this morning. Right now, we talk about David. I pray that these children will learn something special. Speak to our hearts in a very special way. In your name I pray. All of God's children say, Amen. So, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into 1 Samuel chapter 17. Please open your Bible. 1 Samuel chapter 17. Got some really fun stuff that we are going to do right now. So I've got something to talk about, and I want to see if you guys can relate with me. If you're taking notes, get your notebook out, get a pen out, get a Bible out. Everything else goes under your chair. Bible, pen, notebook. We're going to talk about making kings brave. Making kings brave. There are 3 ways that I can think about being afraid. You can categorize, not everything, but most things, into one of 3 fear factors. The one that I hate the most is jump scare. You're familiar with the term jump scare? You know what a jump scare is? Some of you older kids might know what that is. Jump scare is it's like Monsters Incorporated. And you're watching, and then Boo is being chased down by Randall, and you're on the inside of, you're hiding or whatever, and then the monster comes out. As you're watching this, like that. That's a jump scare. It's quiet, you're on the edge of your seat, you're trying to figure out what happened, and then all of a sudden, and you're frozen just for a second and you jump. So jump scares happen to me quite frequently. I was a teenager, I was putting laundry away. I told somebody this. I was taking laundry off my bed. Mom had it all folded for me, it's great. And I go over my closet, I'm putting it away, and I'm organizing, I'm making sure everything's exactly right, otherwise it didn't all fit. So I'm trying to make sure it's right, I'm hanging everything up, and I'm in my own little world, right? I mean, I'm putting my laundry away. I turn around and my dad's there. And I didn't scream, I didn't shout, I didn't make any noise, I just went, like my body just starts trembling, thinking that scared me. I didn't know he was there. He was just standing there watching me, and that just like sent shivers down my whole body. It was weird. So then I've been watching scary movies, not scary, but scary when something jumps out at you. In fact, one time I was watching a movie, this big rodent of unusual size jumps out of the tree and jumps on somebody, and I knew it was going to happen. It makes a loud growling sound. We had adults over at our house. I'm little. I'm like first, second grade. I knew that my dad, whenever I'd watched this movie before, he went roar and grabbed me around the shoulders. And I went, ah! And jumped out of my chair. It was hilarious. Because now maybe that was really funny that he did that. We had this really nice, sweet, older lady at our house. And she's watching this movie. She's sitting on the ground with everybody else. And we're all watching this movie. And she apparently had never seen this. So they're walking through the forest, and it's dark and kind of creepy, and this guy's got his sword, and he's going through, and like this rodent's about to jump out of a tree, it's a big old mouse-looking thing. And so I creeped through everybody, and I got really close, and I waited, and I knew where it was going to happen. And all of a sudden, the camera was changing to the big mouse, and I went, roar! And I grabbed her around the shoulders, and she screamed, and I got beat within an inch of my life. My mom grabbed me, son, what are you doing? And she took me out. I learned very quickly, Mr. Matt, don't do that to adults. It's not funny. But those jump scares, that is scary. Now, you can get scared when you don't know what's happening, whether it's a jump scare or maybe you're scared because you're lost. There's several kids yesterday, I got separated from mom and dad, and they look up to me. One kid, I mean, he's just, like, he's terrified. He didn't speak English. He spoke Thai, like Thailand, Thai. And I didn't know what he was saying, and all of a sudden he just points. And I'm like, I'll follow you, kid. And we're walking together. That's scary, because you don't know what's going on. You don't know where your parents were. We found the parents, but it was kind of hard on them, right? But there is another type of fear that you know exactly what's about to happen, and that's why you're afraid. It's the terror of when your mom looks at you, or your dad, or whatever, and they say, go to your room and wait for me. Oh, I know what's going to happen, and I don't want to know! That's scary, right? How about this? Who's been to Beach Bend with me? You've gone with me. I've taken you on an amusement park trip. So when you're in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, something we schedule every year on our calendar. Chase is just like, oh yeah, I was there. So we showed up. And I'm walking around. Now, I talk really big stuff sometimes. I mean, I'm like, oh yeah, kids, we're going to have fun. We're going to ride whatever. And I told them, anything you ride, I'll ride, except for the thing that's going to make me throw up. I'm not going to throw up just to prove a point, but I'll ride whatever, right? So then all of a sudden, I'm walking around. The first time I was at Beach Bend with you guys, I walked up and I saw the drop tower. Huge. Tallest thing in the amusement park. And I saw it and said, out loud, no. Kept walking. It was just, no. Not doing that. So I get a little closer. We rode a few roller coasters, big drops. We're all screaming, this is great. We got off, and I started walking a little bit closer to this drop tower. And all of a sudden, I saw this pretty cool-looking kid with his older sister getting off the drop tower. And Bryce Davidson is just running off the tower, and he's like, yeah! And I'm thinking, Bryce, you're like 50 pounds. Like, did they let you on that ride? Like, Bryce, if he like holds his breath and goes, you fall off the ride. I mean, Bryce is just, he was little, and I'm thinking, how did they even let you on? Like, this is crazy. And I'm like, I wasn't going to ride this, and now Bryce is like, Mr. Ryan, that was so cool. And I'm like, I can't let Bryce beat me. So here's what I did. Every year, I go and I ride the drop tower because Bryce, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Whatever. So I'm sitting on the ride. I've got a brand new Apple Watch, right? Still got it right now. So I'm sitting on the drop tower, and I'm buckling myself in, click, 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 and I'm thinking, I hate this. I absolutely hate it. I don't want to be on here right now. And I snap the little buckle in, and I'm waiting, and I'm thinking, I hate it. I hate it. I hate this. I hate it. Absolutely. I don't want to. I'm not even allowed to say the word hate, but I hate it. This isn't good. And then they said, it's like, I hope that announcement wasn't important because I can never understand what you're saying. And then all of a sudden it takes off, and I'm thinking, okay, if it dropped right now, I would still be afraid. And barely got off the ground, and we got a little higher, and you know when you're on those, you're trying to compare with the other rides. Okay, I'm as tall as that ride, and I was on that ride. It'll be okay. Oh no, we're going way higher than that. And I looked up, and it's like the thing is never going to end. This thing might go all the way to heaven. It might. This is really scary. So I'm all the way up. I got my watch out, and my watch is saying, warning, 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 your heart is going very fast. I took my little tap, and it's like, my watch is telling me, right, what are you doing? This isn't good. I got all the way up to the top, and it stopped, and I just go, in fact, I don't know. I just know when I got to the bottom. Do you know what the fetal position is? It's where you grab your knees and you bring them up to your chest like a cannonball and you wrap your arms around them. That's like, I went fetal position on the roller coaster. My knees came up and I'm just like, all the way down, right? Now, the good news is, I am on the back and I knew nobody could see me. So I'm screaming and my legs are kicking and I'm twisted all over my feet. And it was very fast and very scary. And all the way down, I'm thinking, this was absolutely terrifying. And when I opened my eyes, Chase's sister was videoing me. She had walked all the way to the back of the roller coaster with her phone. And so you see my feet kicking like a little girl. And I'm screaming all the way down. Because, look, I knew what was going to happen. I knew it's going to take me really high and then drop me really fast. And that is terrifying. We're about to watch the king of Israel get very afraid because he knew what was going to happen. We're going to play a game. Mr. Matt and Miss Madison. Can I real quick? We're going to play a game right now. So, 1 Samuel 17. Please open your Bible. 1 Samuel 17. This whole chapter is about David and who?
Saul.
All together. David and
Saul.
Alright, we're going to play a game, guys. Because I don't have enough time to go through the whole story, I want you all to prove to me that you know the story of David and Goliath. So, Mr. Matt, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play the game called And Then He. And Then He. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start the story, and then you are going to tell me what he did next. Let's start with David. Make it really easy. David was watching the sheep, and then he went down to the army to give his brothers some food, right? Cheese, bread. And then, just David, and then he, I'm sorry, Miss Madison. You got to tell me what he did next. So David goes down, it's the story of David and Goliath, right? David goes down to the army, and he brought his brothers some food, and then he, well, Samuel may not have been at the battle. Okay, so he met his brothers. He's seen his brothers. They're in the army camp. And then David heard, we call giant guy, Goliath. And then he saw Goliath. And David's looking at Goliath, and he's thinking, this big one brings him. He's big and tall, and he's talking smack, but I think I can beat him. So David, after he looked at Goliath, and he's kind of summing it up a little bit, he's thinking, I can probably get this guy. And then David went over and 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and he picked them up, and he's going to go take on Goliath. And then he went there. He starts slinging that stone around, and throws it up. And then David's done. He's beats Goliath. Goliath's dead on the ground, and then it gets a little gruesome. In fact, if you want to read what David did next, you guys can read in 1 Samuel later. Now, let's go to Saul. Have a seat. Now we know how to play this game. Go ahead, you guys sit down. Let's play with you guys. So we've got Saul. Saul is sitting in his camp. He's got all of Israel set up, and he's ready to take on Goliath, but he doesn't know who's going to go down. All of a sudden, he hears about a little boy named David, and David says he's going to kill Goliath, and then Saul, what? Somebody raise their hand. What did Saul do next? Grab it. You what? Yeah, he thought, how's this little kid going to do it? But then, Saul, what do you think? Yes, he said, David, I'm going to let you try on my armor. Put your arms in here and your legs in here. And David looked down, and did it fit him? No. So then, Saul, what happened after that? Anybody have an idea what Saul did next? Didn't fight. It didn't fit David. He's going to go fight Goliath. And then he... Yeah.
And then after that, David
The next thing Saul did was sit down and watch this little boy go up and get killed by Goliath. Is that what happened? Let's turn the stories a little bit. Let's talk about Goliath. Goliath shows up. They set up their tent. They get everything ready on their side of the valley. And Goliath shows up and starts cursing the God that Israel worships, which is our God. He starts saying bad words and cursing God and cursing them. And then Goliath saw some little boy running up to him. What boy was that?
David.
And then, as Goliath saw David, and then he what? What did Goliath do next? What do you think, Hattie? He what? Yeah. Goliath, he's looking at this little boy. He goes, am I a dog that you're running up to me with a stick? And the boy goes, I am sent in the name of the Lord. And Goliath's thinking, this kid's going to get destroyed from the face of the world. And then Goliath, he's looking, he's thinking, what is that? Is that a rock? Is that a rock? It's getting a little closer. What is that? Is that a rock? It looks like a rock. It's getting really close to my face, actually. And that's the last thing that went through Goliath's brain was a rock. Then he fell down dead. David walks up to Goliath, and he's thinking, this giant, if you get hit in the head with a rock, and the Bible says that he was dead, but David really wanted to make sure. And he looked around. In fact, a few weeks ago, I told you that Israel did not have one type of weapon because Philistines didn't want them to have them. What kind of weapon did the Israelites only have two of in the whole nation? Aiden? Did you raise your hand because you wanted to raise your hand? A little bit. Bradley? A sword. How many swords were there in Israel? How many? 2. Did David have one of those swords?
No.
He looked around. He didn't have a sword, and he looked at Goliath. Goliath had a sword. So David grabbed Goliath's sword and got it out, kind of like some of you guys with that sledgehammer yesterday. He went like this, and the sledgehammer fell backwards. Okay, so David's got this big sword, and he got that sword, and he goes, in the name of my God. Well then, I'll let you read it if you want to find out what David did. Now, David killed Goliath, and he made for sure that Goliath was dead. So then, David walks back into the camp, and David's all messed up, and I mean, David's like, this was great, look what God did. Saul was thinking, David's different. See, the Spirit of God used to be on Saul, but it left, and the Spirit of God moved onto who?
David.
David. We're going to start in verse number, we're going to start in chapter 18 here in just a minute. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. If you're taking notes, write down number 1. God uses his children for victory. God looked at David and he said, David, I'm going to use you to do something fantastic, something absolutely amazing. And he did. Do you realize that God can use you? That, oh God, I'm shorter than these guys. Maybe I'm not as strong as somebody else. I'm not as talented as somebody else. I don't think I can do big things. You'd be wrong. If God uses David to become king one day, God can use you to do anything that God has planned for you. Number 1, God uses his children to do big things. I've got another passage I'm going to read you. This is actually up on the screen. 1 Samuel 18, starting in verse number 8. It says this. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying displeased him. And he said, people of Israel, they have ascribed unto David thousands and 10,000s, and to me they ascribed only thousands. And what can they have more but the kingdom? You know what that means? You walk in the city, David has the head of Goliath in his hands, literally, which is really gross. And he walks in, he's got Goliath, and he's like, hey mom, look what I did. I walked in, and all the ladies, they start singing, and they go, David has killed tens of thousands, and Saul has killed thousands. Saul's like, dude, I'm the king. I'm in charge of everybody. I've been fighting since David was born. This is David's first fight. He walks in and he's doing all this stuff and everybody's really praising David. And David, he doesn't care, but Saul needs to get really mad. David took the sword of Goliath. And do you know where David put the sword? Oh, you raised your hand. Do you know? Where? Yeah, so but where did he store it after he came back from the battle? Do you know where David put the sword? Where did he hide it? This is so cool. David walks up to the church. By the way, who stays at the church? He wrote the books that we're reading now. Samuel. Samuel's the high priest. And David drags the sword back and he goes, Samuel, I have something for you. Can you keep this here? Like, okay. Needs to be washed off a little bit, but I'll stick it in the corner here. I'll keep it. It's a really cool thing. Nobody here is big enough to be able to wield the sword of Goliath, but yeah, I'll keep it. It's pretty cool. So David walks back in, and he's excited, and he's gotten this battle from the Lord. And Saul, is he happy that David has a song written about him? No. No. Keep reading. Verse 9. And Saul eyed David from that day forward. It came to pass on the morrow, the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played with his hand as at other times, and there was a javelin in Saul's hand. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David, even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence. How many times? And Saul was, what's that next word? Verse number 12. All together. And Saul was
afraid of David.
How, Mr. Matt, how could the king of Israel, with a javelin, a spear in his hand, how could he be afraid of a little kid? I'm reading the story of this passage and I'm thinking, there's no reason for that. Okay, I'll ask you that. Who in this room is afraid of a 3-year-old? 3-year-old comes up to you, and they go, Victor, I'm going to beat you up. Clara, seriously, if you're afraid of a 3-year-old, show me your hand. I don't think so. Look here. Look right up here. All right, sit there straight. Look up here. Okay. Let me ask you another question. Let's say that 3-year-old was driving the car and you're in the car. Who's afraid of the 3-year-old now? Hey, boys, sitting up straight. Looking forward always. Got a lot of practice once you get out there. As if you're sitting in a car with a 3-year-old driving, everybody in this room is going to be afraid. Because that 3-year-old has the power and capability of causing great harm to you, your vehicle, and others. Saul looked at David, and he said, David, I'm scared of him because he's got something dangerous. He's got the Spirit of God. And that's what he's scared. As David's just doing what he always does. Look right up here at me. Right up here. As David's doing his thing and he's doing what he always does, he's thinking, man, I don't know why Saul's afraid. Saul's afraid because David is one day going to take the kingdom, and I think Saul knows it. He's afraid because David's going to cause great harm to the kingdom of Saul, and Saul doesn't like it. God's power makes others afraid. I'm going to keep reading as you write that down. And Saul removed him from him and made him a captain over 1,000. And David went out and came in before the people. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of David. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hands of the Philistines may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law, and the one of the two. Hey, please pick up the back. Hey, Adeline, can you stand at the front? Let everybody come in at the back. That would be great. So Saul looked to David. He says this. David said to David, David, I don't really want you being right in front of me all the time, so I'm going to put you as far away from me as I can. Hey, David, why don't you go fight? I want you to be in the battle. I want you to go fight with the Philistines. Maybe David will die. That would have been great for Saul. Then all of a sudden, ladies, David fell in love. David looks over and sees Michal, and Michal sees David, and she goes, oh. Once upon a time, I was working at Chick-fil-A in California. I'm working at Chick-fil-A. All of a sudden, I looked up, and I'm eating my little break meal. Madison told me her family was going to come down, and I was going to get to meet her family for the first time ever. So I'm watching. Mr. Matt, just make sure nobody comes in this room. So as I'm watching, and I'm eating my sandwich, and she said, sometime today they're going to come by. I'll be in Lancaster. I'm eating my break meal, and I'm watching YouTube or whatever. And I look up, and all of a sudden, I see this huge, tall, awesome-looking dude. He's Hawaiian, so he's kind of dark, and he's super to be calling anybody I know. And he walked in the door, and he did this. He pulled this move. He goes, he saw me. He just kind of looked at me for a second. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. And he starts walking over to me, and I'm thinking, I don't really know what's going to happen. See, Madison and I have been dating for a while. See, I called him. I said, I'd like to date your daughter. Is that okay? And he goes, yeah, we'll see. I don't really know what that means. And I'm like, no, I want to take her out on a date. Is that okay? I mean, I said, I would like to take her to the mall with 100 other college students. Is that okay? And he goes, Katrina! This is why I say Madison's mom. Katrina! He said, Ryan, this kid Ryan wants to take Madison on a date. Is that okay? And she goes, sure. He goes, that'll be fine. But you better open the door. You better treat her like a gentleman. You better have her back at her house by 7. I'm thinking, the bus gets back at 10. He goes, that's fine. Just make sure she gets back. And I'm thinking, okay, I'll do it. So I took her out on a date. We've gone on several dates, right? Just one? I don't think so. Our stories are different. So we had dated. We had gone on a date. We went to coffee. We went to the mall. All right. So he shows up, and I'm thinking, I don't know what happened. And they walked over, and I stood up. I'm covered in raw chicken because I work at Chick-fil-A. And I walk up, and I kind of dust my hands off, and I pulled the Mr. Ryan move. I go, how are you, sir? I mean, that's how I do it. If I'm talking to your dad, I'll go, how are you, sir? That's how I always do it. It's very engaging. I take my eyes and I look at their eyes. And I stand off to the side a little bit and I stick my hand out. I even make myself a little bit shorter, kind of bend myself a little bit to make the other person feel taller. It's something I've always done because they always feel more. How are you, sir? I always do that. So I did that. He shook my hand. He looked me in the eyes and he goes, I'm Madison's dad. You know, I know that. Yes, sir. He goes, okay, I wanted to meet you. Now we've met. Have a good day. And that was it. And that was pretty much all he said. It was very quick. And I'm like, I don't really know. So we dated a little bit before. Not me and him, me and Nancy. We dated. We went out to Disneyland. We sat down, and he did not sit there and throw a spear at me. He didn't. But he crossed his arms and he said, Ryan, you asked me tonight. I asked him that. I said, can I ask Madison to be my girlfriend? He looked at me and he goes, if you hurt her ever, I'll kill you. Guys, you're supposed to say that, by the way. So I'm like, yes, sir. I won't hurt her, I promise. And he goes, and you know what? If You better hold the door open for it. You better be nice to her. You better do this and that and that. And if you don't, buddy, it's gonna be really bad. He goes, I'm only one plane ticket away from fighting you. I will track you down. Madison's sitting there and she's going, Dad, just stop. And he goes, my father was in the FBI, and he's thinking, I will find you. I will, man. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I am terrified right now. This is so scary. Can you imagine being David? David looks up at Saul. Saul throws a spear, and the next time we read the Bible, Saul's like, hey, you want to marry my daughter? Okay, whatever you want, that's fine. So David looks up and realizes God's power makes people afraid. I've got to hurry. Realize this. The world is not afraid of you. They're afraid of what you do. If you have God in your life, they're afraid of you. Listen, today the world is afraid of what you can do. Because when you partner with God, it's unbelievable what you can accomplish. With God's power, you can do anything God asks you to do. Last thing I want to review is this. 1 Samuel 19:1. So Michael let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. Michael was married to David because Saul wanted to use his daughter to help kill him. David shows up one night at home and he goes, honey, I'm a little scared. Your dad's trying to kill me. She goes, oh, that again? He goes, no, really, he's trying to kill me. He sent an army after me. Got an idea. I don't know, maybe they lived in the castle. I kind of think maybe they did. And he got in a basket. And Michael must have been huge. Or Michael. Yes. She let him down through a window in a basket. Whatever. Not a, it doesn't say basket. I'm making it small. She let him down through the window. Can you imagine what kind of a muscular woman? She's like, hey, David, let me just help you down there. It's like, I don't know. Maybe she's pretty strong. But she let David down. He escaped. And when the army showed up, they said, where's David? She goes, he's asleep in bed. They cracked the door open. There he is in bed. So they said, well, we need to get back there. She goes, no, shit, you leave him alone. They went back to Saul and said, Saul, Michael wouldn't let us in. He goes, Michael, just move her out of the way. Go kill David. They ran in there. They grabbed the covers. They threw it off. Michael had put a pillow on the inside of their covers and hid it. Made it look like a person, and it was just a pillow. And he goes, she lied to us. David's gone. Saul was mad at Michael. Michael's like, he's my husband. I'm going to take care of him. You're my dad, but don't worry. I'm going to take care of my husband. Whatever. Michael saved his life. Can I read you another verse? 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1. And David fled from Naioth to Ramah, and he came and said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is my iniquity or sin? And what is my sin before thy father that he seeketh my life? He's trying to kill me. And Jonathan said to David, God forbid thou shalt not die, but behold, my father will do nothing, either great or small, but that he will show it to me. Why should my father hide this thing from me? Is it not so? You realize this? David had two friends. Godly friends will make you better. Godly friends will make you a better person. I'm going to tell you a quick story. So I went down to summer camp. Who's been to Arkansas with me? Been on a trip to Arkansas with me? A lot of you have. We went down to summer camp. I'm a teenager, and as a teenager, I showed up, and all of a sudden they said, all right, we've got a huge competition that we're going to do. It's not a competition, it's a preacher. If you want to preach, you need to go down to the pulpit, and we let you preach for 5 minutes. So I'm sitting there, and me and my buddy Matthew, we're like best of friends. We showed up, and we're talking about whatever. We're super excited. And Matthew goes, hey, Ryan, are you doing the Preacher Boy competition? I keep saying competition. It was just a place that preachers could go to. I said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do that. Ryan, you're not going to preach? I said, no, I really don't. See, now I'm trying to be all tough. I'm trying to be like, man, I'm too cool for that. I'm too, whatever, I'm not going to preach. I don't need to preach. I'm too cool for it anyway. I'll be too busy at swim time. I don't have time to write a message. I don't know what I'm going to do. Matthew asked me, he goes, Ryan, are you sure you don't want to preach? We preach every year. We always do this. Ryan, are you sure? sitting there and I'm trying to figure out what to say. I said, yeah, I don't know, maybe. I said, we'll see. I just kind of pushed it off. They came and they said, all right, preacher boys, if you've not started your message yet, go ahead and get that thing started, get it ready. It's quick, you don't have to be long. Who in this room has preached at Triple F? You've done that. Ben, Jonah, Logan, Bradley, Isaac. I don't think you were there for that. Is that all of you? So we showed up. I picked some kids this last year and told them, you can get up. What? Who was there and heard them preach? You were there, you heard them preach? We took some girls too. So they all listened. They did a good job, right, ladies? They did a really good job. We showed up. Those boys walked down there. I told Bradley, I said, there's a teenager that's you just run up behind the platform. I said, Bradley, I want you to full sprint and beat the teenager to the platform. He goes, okay, Mr. Ryan. And he got ready, and he just ran up as fast as he could. The teenager, he had this suit and tie on. He was about ready to go up, and Bradley goes, hey, I'm Bradley. I'm from Franklin Road, and I've got a message. Open up your Bibles. Jonah or Genesis? Where did you preach from? Jonah. So he got up and he preached on Jonah, I think. John. God's love. That's exactly right. So he got up and preached on John 3:16, and it was awesome. But I'm sitting there, and I remember the year at Triple S, and I told my best friend in the world, no, I'm not going to preach. What I didn't tell him is because I was terrified. I was scared to death. I didn't want to preach. I don't want to get up in front of people and tell them where I'm from and who I am and open up the Bible and preach. I don't want to do that. I'm scared. Mr. Ryan, you do this every week. You always preach. Why would you be? I was terrified. I did not want to get up in front of people. I didn't preach that year. My friend came up to me after Matthew and she hit me on the shoulder. I don't know why he did do that, but it was good. And he goes, Ryan, that will never happen again. I don't care what you do, but I'm going to preach every chance I get. I'm never going to let you talk me out of that. Ryan, I should have preached. I should have been up there. My message could have helped somebody. And instead, I was at swim time goofing off with you when I was supposed to be behind a pulpit preaching. Ryan, I will never let you stop me again. That's very uncomfortable when your friends are leaving. But you know what? You're right. The next year, guess what? We got up and preached. In fact, we ended up both being able to stand up and preach on a Sunday night here at Franklin Road. Pastor let us get up. We had a message ready, and I got up. And I actually got to do that a couple of times. In fact, you can go on YouTube and watch those right now. Yep, that's right. Ryan Baker preached a Sunday night at Franklin Road Baptist Church. If you want to see me as a little teenager preaching, hilarious. Very funny to watch the little squirrely stuff run around. But Mr. Ryan, you do this every week. Why would you be afraid? I still am. You know how nervous I get before I get up and speak? God doesn't ask us to do stuff that we like doing, which I do like preaching, but He doesn't always ask us to be comfortable doing what we're doing. He asks us to be obedient, even if the obedience seems uncomfortable. Many times you can be more changed by your YouTube channel than our friends, family, and Bible. This is it. Here's what I want you to realize. My friend Matthew took me from being very afraid of getting up and speaking to people to now I do it all the time. My friend changed me and made me better than I used to be. One question. What are you let change you? Is it good friends? Is it bad? Are you being changed and influenced by YouTube? Are you letting streamers and gamers talk bad, say bad things, watching TV that has bad stuff in it? Is that what you're letting change you? Because if you're being changed by bad media, it's time to stop putting bad media in your head. Look, the people that are around you and the things that are going into your eyes and your ears will change you. It's time to let those things be good. It's time to start growing. The way you grow determines the life that you live. If you want an awesome life at the end of your life, you can look back and say, wow, I had a great life. Then you've got to grow to that. But the way you grow is determined by the people you have in your life, your family, your friends, and your Bible. We talked today about a scaredy cat king. He He was afraid because David showed up and said, "Here am I. I'll do whatever God asks me to do." First of all, God's going to have you do great things for him. Number two, God's power makes people without God's power very afraid. And lastly, godly friends will make you a better person. When you say, "Here am I," surrender to God letting you do something great. Surrender to God's power, and no people are going to be afraid of that. And lastly, just surround yourself with the good things that can change you. So we have that under eyes closed. I have one question. Are you going to be changed in the right way? Are you going to let God's word into your heart, not just listening to it, but letting it change you? If you do, you're going to be a better person because of it. But I think if we really looked at it, we probably don't spend all that much time in our Bibles trying to find stuff to change in our life. We come to church, we listen for something like, "Oh yeah, that was really good, maybe I need to do that." But we should be doing that every day. Do you have friends in your life that are shaping you to be better? I've had to go to my parents a lot of times and they say, "Why did you get in trouble?" And I told them, "Well, I was hanging out with my friend so-and-so." Well, that's why I got in trouble. I never would have done those things if I wouldn't have been with them. But see, I surrounded myself with the wrong people. Right now in your chair, can you make a decision for God? Decide that whatever God asks you to do, you'll do. And also decide that your friends, the people around you, you will let them make you a better person. Let's pray all together. Father, I love you and I pray that you'll please be with us today. Help these children as they go home. I pray that they'll apply the stuff that they've learned. I pray that we'll be better because of it. I pray that what we do as we were around will make us better people than we were before. Lord, we love you. I pray that you'll be with us. In your heavenly name I pray. Amen. Amen. You guys listen so well. Mr. Matt, we're going to give out some prizes, and here's how we're going to do that. Here's how we're going to do that. Mr. Matt, would you stand on your own? I'll stand. I'll have you, Miss Madison. Would you guys come on up here? I'm going to have you guys help get these out.